Hello! Welcome back to another speed build. Today I am building a 1980s themed ranch house. This was originally built in Sequoia on the Sequoia Cottage lot, which is a 30 by 20. And I'm pretty sure this is the lot that Lil Simsy built their blue craftsman style home on. So I'm sorry, Kayla, but I needed this lot. I liked your house. I really did. And I'll probably play in it eventually. But I just really wanted to build this 1980s themed ranch style house. And this lot was perfect because I didn't want a lot that was too big. This comes in at 103,834 simoleons, and we've got 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in this house. It ends up being kind of an L shape, but I did have a picture that I was working off of for reference, and the front of the house looks exactly like that picture. I'm not sure if I saved that picture. If I did, I'll put it up on the screen so you can compare here in just a moment. Once it looks a little bit more like a house. I wasn't really sure what I wanted the layout to be in this house, other than I wanted it to have one of those long, skinny hallways, and I didn't want a very open floor plan. I also knew that I wanted to have a detached garage, and it's because when I grew up in the 80s, and in our house we had a ranch with a detached garage, so I don't know, I was just kind of nostalgic for making a house like that. Our ranch though was on a little bit higher of a foundation. We actually had steps up to the front porch and up to the side door and up to the back porch. But I wanted to do like a traditional flat ranch style house for this build. But one of the reasons that I knew I wanted a garage is because I started building this about a day before they made the announcement that they were going to do the latest update and release the 2 new kits, Basement Treasures and Greenhouse Haven. So, or Heaven, Greenhouse, it's Greenhouse something, I don't know. I haven't bought the Greenhouse one yet, but I did buy the Basement Treasures kit. So I knew that, and this is why, I knew that I wanted this house to have a garage and instead of a basement, and that would be where I would use all the Basement Treasures kit stuff. But also, as soon as I saw from the first picture that they posted way back in the background that there was a console TV, I knew I had to have it for this house. So I started building this before I even knew. I spent some time off camera before I even started this build trying to build my own functioning console TV, which I could never get it quite right. It didn't look perfect enough for me. It always looked kind of weird, even though I did get it to the point where it was functioning. So I knew that I just really wanted this console TV for this build. So I started building this, and then the update came out on a Tuesday, of course, and the 2 packs were supposed to be released on that Thursday. I continued building it on that Tuesday, and oh my goodness, after an update, it's always that day of the update. I don't know if it's like this for anybody else, but like especially on console, the day of the update, it just seems like everything is just so glitchy. And I actually like rage quit twice trying to build this house after that update on that Tuesday. I don't think I've ever rage quit in The Sims before, but I did, let me tell you. So I put it down and waited and started building again the next day. And then I tried to get as much as I could finished, with the exception of the garage and the living room, because I was waiting for that Basement Treasures kit to be released. Because I needed that console TV And I know a lot of people are upset that the console TV that came with that kit doesn't function. But honestly, that doesn't upset me too much, because with me building the 80s themed house, I really wanted that console TV to be there and be broken and have the TV sitting on top of it, because that's what you did. If you had one of those big console TVs, if they stopped working, those things, okay, tube TVs are heavy anyway. And when you've got all that wood built around that old tube TV, those things were so heavy. So a lot of times you didn't move them. They became your new entertainment center. They became your new TV stand. You just popped that new TV right on top of it. And a lot of times, you threw a tablecloth over it or something and put the new TV on top of it. But I know in one of my grandparents' house, they just had the TV stacked on top of it. And in my other grandparents' house, they did have this little lacy tablecloth that you could completely see through over top of the console TV with the new TV popped on top of that. So I don't even understand what the point of that was, having the lacy tablecloth on it. But also the new TV that we got in the Basement Treasures kit, the new retro TV that does function, I am absolutely in love with it, because you turn it on and it's got the little lines going through it. You know how, like, okay, if you take your cell phone and you record a screen and it has a different frame rate than what you're recording at, you'll get like those little lines traveling up and down the screen that you're recording. It has that on the TV screen, and that's very much a thing that happened when you didn't get good reception with a TV that relied on an antenna. You would get those little lines, or you would get snow, which was, white noise and fuzz and distortion. And I love that they included those little details in the animations. So I've got a rough outline here of the layout that I wanted to do in this house, the floor plan so far. That will change a couple times, and you'll see that change quite a few times as I try to figure out exactly where I want everything. But I definitely knew what colors I wanted to use, what wallpapers, what carpet, what linoleum I wanted to use in this house. And I'm working from memory here, from growing up in the 80s, and I just remember that there were a lot of colors, a lot of patterns, specifically floral and Southwest themes and banana leaves and palm leaves. And with the kitchens, there was still a lot of linoleum going on, and this is when we started getting the flat panel cabinets. You had two choices in the 80s. Your kitchen was either honey oak cabinetry, or your kitchen was the flat panel Formica countertops, pressed wood, typically white with honey oak accents. So these just worked so well for an 80s themed kitchen. Now the layout of this kitchen does change a little bit because I decided that I did want to make it bigger. And you'll notice that that change comes here again even more in just a moment, where I decide to move the microwave as well. That coffee maker gets popped over to the right side of the refrigerator, and then I make like a little counter area with a microwave, because it felt more authentic to me, having a weird kitchen layout that was kind of a little segmented, and it just needed to be smaller. It needed to be close. The kitchens weren't that big in the 80s typically. So we've moved on to the dining room. The dining room is your lovely Southwest theme, because that was one of the big themes in the 80s. Like I said, they're Southwest lace, chantilly, and floral. And specifically Southwest and floral was Laura Ashley stuff. Laura Ashley designed things were really popular in the 80s, just about as popular as the Martha Stewart stuff became in the early 2000s. That was Laura Ashley in the 80s. You had Laura Ashley furniture, and you had what was the name of that? Lisa Frank. You had Lisa Frank folders and Trapper Keepers and Laura Ashley furniture, and that was your life in the 80s. It wasn't as neon as they tried to make it seem in movies and TV shows and stuff. It was very floral, but it was very colorful. And it was a time where you still had carpet in the bathrooms left over from the 70s, but they were transitioning towards more tile. So I decided to go with this bathroom having tile in it in a robin's egg blue, because that was another very popular color. And seashells and sea themes were also very popular. But also what was popular was, for some reason, you had a shower curtain liner, and then you had a shower curtain, and then you had regular like curtains with a valance to decorate the outside of a shower curtain. There were so many curtains going on showers back then, and this one absolutely does function. The whole entire house, as always, has been play tested, and your sim can get in and out of that shower bathtub combo perfectly fine with all the weird curtain things going on. So now we've jumped over to the primary bathroom. The primary bathroom has a little bit of that carpet left over from the 70s, even though we do have a lot of tile going on in here. And I decided I wanted to make a larger primary bathroom, or just a larger bathroom in general than I usually have been putting in houses, because I wanted to try to do, something a little bit more unique with this bathroom, because I feel like that would have also been very fitting for this time period. So we've got the tub up on a little platform over there. And I really liked that idea. I thought that turned out really cute. I kind of wish I would have had more room to have more counter space in here. But having a full-size counter to the right of the sink there, right next to the tub, it just looked really weird and very boxy. So I opted for like the little end counter, half counter type thing, which meant I didn't have as much room for clutter, but I was probably trying to put too much clutter in here anyway. I have a really, really bad habit of putting too much clutter. Also, even with as big as this bathroom was, I had so much trouble getting a good angle to see down in here to place all the clutter. As you just saw like a couple seconds ago, I had to temporarily move the door that I kind of cobbled together there, which is the new archway from Growing Together, and some doors. I'm not sure which pack they're from. I would have to double check, but it kind of gave it like a French door feeling by putting those together, and they absolutely work. Your sim has no problem getting out of them with them layered like that. And I was also surprised that there's not a whole lot of clipping, because a lot of times when you do that, there's a lot of clipping. One thing that I always struggle with, that I have to try to remember, is when I'm placing clutter like this, if I have to move something and place clutter and it's on a platform, I have to keep that countertop up on that platform, or it will clip to the wrong size, which is a little weird, but sometimes I forget that. The primary bedroom turned out a little smaller than I wanted, but that's fine, because I knew I was going to have to sacrifice some room to get that primary bathroom the size that I wanted. But I was going for the whole floral theme in here because I very much remember the wallpaper matching the bedspread, matching the curtains, matching a chair, matching the lamps. Everything was like very matchy in the 80s, especially the floral stuff. Like you bought like the entire collection when you went and bought your bedroom stuff. And I noticed that we don't have that many swatches on beds that are floral, that aren't like boho floral, that are just, pretty dainty, delicate floral swatches. So I was a little disappointed in that. And we're also very lacking in floral swatches for curtains, for drapery. So that was interesting to find that out, because I had never noticed that before. But of course, when I'm typically decorating houses, I'm not going to go for the big heavy floral theme, because once again, that's something that it's really not my aesthetic. And I think it comes from growing up in the 80s, being around all of this stuff. I also have an intense hatred for mirrors. And I think that's also because I remember in the 80s, everything was gold and lots of mirrors and lots of glass. And so I don't like those kind of things. So I tend to not put them in my builds. I'd like to try to build some things that I don't like, and that's another reason why I've been doing like the decades builds, the 70s houses and the 80s houses, and I've been trying to use things that I don't normally use, things that I don't like, because I try to remember that maybe other people like those things. Now in the second bedroom, I opted for a nursery because we just got all those updates, even in base game with the new infant life stage. So I figured, why not? Let's do another nursery, and it was easy. And it was kind of fitting because I found this wall, the wallpaper, or it could be paint. I think it is wallpaper, where you've got the border. And that was another thing that was very popular in 80s, were the wallpaper borders that just went around the top of the rooms. I can remember going into stores where you would buy wallpaper, and there would just be aisles and aisles of just borders that you were supposed to put on your painted wall, or over top of wallpaper on your wall. That was borders that went around the top of the wallpaper. So we finally come to the living room, which is my favorite room of the house, because I got to use my new stuff from the Basement Treasures kit, and I think it fits so perfectly in a retro build. I mean, this stuff is going to look great in a basement or a garage as well, but it really helped out with this 80s theme in this build. I really wanted to use this little plant stand shelving thing over here on the right, because it also felt very 80s to me. I do end up getting rid of it though, because I did want a bookcase and a desk over there. I opted to have more, skill building things in here, other than just this huge plant stand full of things. So I thought that was a good option to do that instead. One of the main reasons why I wanted to be able to put a computer in this build is this is the decade where you actually started having actual personal computers in your homes. So we have this lovely, weird looking word processor thing. They have it listed as a word processor. It kind of, to me, looks like an Atari with a screen on it, but either way, it's just absolutely perfect, and I was super excited that I got to use it for this build. Also, if you'll notice the light at the top, I merged a light with a fan, because I remember in almost every house that I went in growing up, there was at least one room that had a ceiling fan with these weird drop-down sconce-looking lights on it. Like, everybody had that, with the little flower-shaped glass pieces on it. I'm not sure what those are called. I don't remember. Another thing that I remember a lot of people having in the houses were end tables like this that had the lamps built into the end table. So I tried to replicate that as best as I could. Our final room inside the house is going to be the little foyer entrance area. I did some of it off screen, mainly just some of the decorating, the little plants up there sitting on the shelves. But I do the majority of it on camera. I do also, off camera, go back and add smoke detectors to all the rooms and make sure that we've got light switches everywhere. And then if you look to your left of the table that well, you can't see it now, but you could see it a minute ago. I added a boom box in the living room, and you'll see that in the end and screenshots, of course. I also used this box from the new Basement Treasures kit because it felt very appropriate. We didn't really start using like the plastic tubs and baskets and things until the 90s for storage. We still did very much use boxes. The late 80s, the basket craze did start kicking off, and then like all through the 90s, oh my goodness, like Longenberger baskets were like the thing. You had all kinds of Longenberger baskets in your house if you were somebody in the 90s. So this garage, we've moved on to the garage, which I pulled out almost every single thing from the Basement Treasures kit to put in this garage. And I think it turned out so cute. I think that it looks so much better than the typical garages that I decorate. I just feel like I do the same thing over and over in garages. Put some shelves, put some junk on shelves, add maybe like a woodworking table, maybe an art easel, and I just feel like my garages get, as far as decorating goes, they just get a little repetitive. So I was really thankful to have all of this new clutter that's meant to be for a basement. I think it looks great also in a garage. So, you know, for $5 US, I recommend the Basement Treasures kit, absolutely, because I feel like it's a lot more versatile than people are giving it credit for. You can use it in garages, you can use it in basements, you can use it in retro builds, you can use it in rundown builds. Pair it together with the eco lifestyle stuff and do a really bad, nasty apartment or house or build. So I really love it, but I knew I would. I was excited for the kit. It's my aesthetic. So as far as having something to do for your Sims to interact with out in this garage, to give it a purpose, not just all of this junk sitting out here, I decided to put the guitar and the amp out here because I figured nothing says 80s to me more than hair bands. I was a big fan of the hair bands in the 80s, you know, Guns N' Roses and Whitesnake, and I can't think of any others right now, but there were a lot, and I listened to all of them, as well as the beginnings of metal with like Metallica and Megadeth, and that went more into the 90s. But I felt like it would be very appropriate to have an area in this garage where somebody could be aspiring to be in a band, or somebody used to be in a band and their stuff is still out here. In retrospect, I probably could have popped in a microphone over there too, and that would have been a good idea, but I wasn't sure if there would be room. But there is room to get over there and play that guitar. So I did have to take out one of the green chairs because when I was playtesting, my sim picked the guitar up, played it, and then promptly put it right in front of one of the chairs. So you'll see that in the screenshots, of course. Anything that I changed that you see that is different from what I actually build is reflected in the screenshots. So we finally come out into the backyard. This is the last area I do believe that we have to do, and I bounce back and forth from the backyard to the front yard as I find things that I want to put in the front yard. But I thought for this one, let's do an above ground pool. I'm not sure if I did it correctly because this pool turns out really, really, really deep. Just raising it up. But I like the way it looked, and it functions just perfectly. The sim had no problem getting in and out of it, so I suppose that's okay. Also, I decided to break up this deck because this backyard ended up being just very narrow, just a long, skinny backyard. And I didn't like the way it looked I wanted the deck to go all the way across the backyard, but I didn't like the way it looked with the deck going all the way across the backyard. So I decided to break up the deck into 2 levels. And I do feel like this worked a lot better. I think it looks better. I'm going to add some of these planters over here on the side there, like you just saw just now. And I'll also put a meditation stool over there in the middle of those planters that you're not going to see on camera, but you will see in the screenshots. Also in the screenshots on the deck near the hot tub, you'll see a yoga mat. I add that because I really wanted somewhere in the build, more so than just the yoga mat and the kettlebell in the foyer, to reflect the whole fitness craze of the 80s. It was more so aerobics was the big thing in the 80s, but also wellness in general. There was a holistic medicine craze that took off in the 80s, and yoga did start becoming big in the 80s as well. So I felt like that was very appropriate and wanted that there somewhere. I'm rearranging things now. I have a tendency to just pull things from the Build and Buy catalog and sit them down, things that I know that I want, and then I go around and rearrange them all to make everything look better. The only other things that I add to this build that you're not going to see on camera, I do go around and from debug, I take a privacy fence to add to the around the house, which is the same type of fencing that matches the rest of the fences in this neighborhood, even though the house style doesn't match the rest of the neighborhood. A little bit more terrain paint, but that's about it. So thank you so very much for watching. Enjoy the screenshots and stick around for that preview. My EA ID to download the build from the gallery is pyxiedusted, spelled just like the YouTube channel. Until next time, bye!